and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name is Dave, and we are here on a Thursday night, which means we are here for the SQUADS show. Your Port Adelaide Footy Club, your Yarda Porty Footy Club, is playing Saturday night footy at Adelaide Oval on Ghana land. For the last game of our first half of the season, we do go into a bye after this week, and we play Carlton this weekend, Saturday night footy. It's an exciting one, opportunity for a win. A lot of things to talk about when we get to it. Before we get into a few subjects, there's a lot of news this week that I wanted to talk about. We try to keep this podcast episode to about an hour, so I'm not going to get to all of it. But good evening, Jamie. As ever, the news cycle never stops.
No, not in this circus/dog and pony show that we continually speak about and moniker the bush league that it is and the media spinning machine that it is. There's always something to talk about, and us suckers will always talk about it.
Bush league. You hear me?
Hey, look at me. Yes, bush league. To be fair, I don't have too many we could go into Pendlebury stuff, but we're just going to be Sans Pendlebury discussion tonight.
We did that last week.
We did, and it's just continued, which is very funny and exhausting. I'm going to be buying myself a copy of the Zach Butters this weekend. That's what I'm going to be doing, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Shout out Zach Butters playing his 150th, but. First thing we want to touch on, a little bit of positive stuff to start with. There is some more darker stuff to talk about in a bit. But AFLW fixture dropped today. So it is a reminder that the AFLW season is creeping up. And of course, the girls have been in preseason training for the last week or so. So it's been nice seeing all the content coming out. A team that is just bubbling along, hoping to be a real power in the competition in the next few years. So we're looking forward to, just a note on that as well, we're looking forward to talking about more AFLW, obviously talking about the departure of Loz Arnell from the coaching group and welcoming Glenn Strachan as well. So there's a lot to talk about in the AFLW front. It is just the weird part of what we do and the limited time we have to do it, the crossover of the season. Sometimes we do just keep the AFLW stuff until it gets closer to the season. But so we will start covering off more of that off-season news as it gets closer to the season. But being that we do have a fixture, I'll read it out quickly. Freo, round one. I don't know if you listened to Kimbo on the Chad tonight. They read out the Oval. Apparently, it's meant to be. They're not sure on the pronunciation of it. Kimbo was talking about whether it's Cockburn or Coburn, and it's a silent K. But yeah, we're playing Freo in round one over there anyway.
Coburn.
Yeah. It was very, very funny chat between them on the show. Round two is our home opener, 2:35 p.m. on Sunday, the 23rd of August against Hawthorn. Round three, GWS in Canberra. Round four, 2:05 p.m. Gold Coast at Alberton Oval. Round five at Casey Fields taking on Melbourne in a kind of lunchtime match. Round six is Alberton Oval against Sydney at 2:05 p.m. Round seven, Mission Whitten Oval, 2:05 p.m. against the Western Bulldogs. Round 8 is one of the important ones. Not that they're not all important, but of course, Saturday, the 3rd of October, 6:45 p.m. Alberton Oval. Get your asses in your seats for the showdown. Prison bars. Let's make it two in a row against the Crows in early October. Round 9, West Coast at Alberton Oval as well. So a back-to-backer at Alberton Oval, 2:35 p.m. against West Coast. Round 10, Brisbane up at Brighton Homes Arena in a kind of twilight match on Saturday, the 17th of October. Round 11 is our last home and away home game at Alberton Oval at 6:45 p.m. against Collingwood. So a nice little finish to the season there with two night games out of our last three at Alberton Oval with Adelaide and Collingwood, the two opponents there. And then we round out the home and away season Halloween during lunch in early afternoon, 1:05 p.m. St Kilda RSCEA Park. So it's a tasty fixture there. How are you feeling about that one? Obviously, it is still the annoyance that we don't get a full fixture and get to see every team in the season. But of course, we get the home showdown this year, which is a real opportunity to win our first showdown on our oval that has been our home for over 140 years. You homeless
Ebit's
fucks.
country. Yeah. I'm excited. A couple of revenge games in there. To an extent, I'm still a little bit disappointed that we don't play North Melbourne, because while for a long period of time now, most teams could just chalk it up as a loss. But I know when we wrapped up the season last year, I'm pretty sure the sentiment, and even with now ex-head coach Loz Arnell, the sentiment was like, yeah, we'd really like to play him again in the form that we finished the season in. And then, if you hypothetically carry that over to this season, as we know from the start of last season, that doesn't necessarily happen. But if we do carry that form over this season and we actually hit the ground running, with the team that we've got, I think that we would mount a much better challenge than we did last year. However, as the fixturing kind of dictates, we finished 10th. So we play predominantly like types around that mark, which we do have, with a couple of extra challenges in there in Melbourne and Brisbane, both away. We did play Melbourne at home last year, while Brisbane was away in quite a hot game as well. But I'm still looking forward to the fact that we get a chance at revenge. And then all the other teams, would probably be feeling a similar way to us. They just need to bridge a small gap, and they're playing finals based on last year's ladder. So Freo need to get them back. That game to kick off our season last year was very underwhelming. And I desperately hope that we're in a better frame of mind coming into this season. But what would an AFL season be without inequities? And in the AFLW, that's a subdued fixture. Looking forward to the day that we do play everyone once, and then we can just flip the home and away fixtures around the next the following year. But we're not there yet. The enjoyment for me is that I think 10th, while disappointing, I think favours us coming into this year, as we hope we see what we were all hoping to see last year. And that's a much more improved side, challenging for at least another preliminary final spot, or grand final spot, or even a premiership.
Definitely want to be aiming for finals, that's for sure. I think that's the kind of the baseline this year as well. We're 5 years into the program now, and we want to be making. We had the first 2 years that were very, very much youth years, and we burst onto the scene with finals, and the third year, and then last year, while we flitted around a little bit, we talked about it. And if you want to, go back, if you're a new listener, welcome. We do, of course, cover off and do the reviews and previews for the W season as well. So that whenever the men's season finishes, we do continue on and cover off the women weekly as well. And a lot of the episodes at the back end of last year, we were talking about some of the best footy we've seen this W side play, despite the fact they played finals the previous year. We actually thought they were playing better footy in the back half of last year. We were really, really impressed with their stuff. So we're hoping to see that this year. It is, I just had a brief look at the ladder from last year and how the final finishing positions. Basically, we've got 6 games against finals, top 8 sides from last year, and 6 games against bottom 10 sides. So it's very even. With 3 of those games, Collingwood finished 15th last year, and Gold Coast and GWS are 17th and 18th. So all of those sides would kind of be hoping for a similar thing to us, to be better than they were last year. So who knows what kind of sides they will be, but just objectively, all you can do is just base your immediate expectations on what you're seeing. You expect a couple of sides in the top 8 to drop lower, some of the bottom 10 to raise higher, where that ends up. But 6 and 6 is a decent fixture equity, I guess, as much as we could hope for. And then, just got to go out there and hope that you're a better side anyway, and you start mixing it with those top 4 to 6 sides, maybe, as far as your skill and execution goes. And from then on, then hopefully you're making finals. And I don't know what to expect. And I'm sure we'll talk about when we get closer to the season and start previewing them more. But obviously the squad is very, very settled. Lots of talent that is just growing year on year, and a few nice little pickups in the off season as well. So I guess the big unknown, and we'll get to it more, it will be just the fact that it's a new coach for the first time in the W program's history. So there's a lot to look forward to there. I'm now that I've seen the fixture and the preseason content starting to come, I'm getting excited. Like you and I both absolutely love the W side and kind of the unique atmosphere, and going to W games is its own wonderful thing. And I'm kind of, I would love to talk to someone from the club, and if there's any news I've missed. But I wonder what they're pushing for doubleheader. Obviously, we don't have any of the doubleheaders that have been announced. I wonder if the club has been just quietly on the side being like, we're pretty happy with the Alberton setup for our W side. They've got a very, very good thing going there.
I agree. I think we brought it up on a regular occurrence or at regular intervals last year, how much we enjoy going to Alberton Oval to watch our girls play, and just the fact that you're supporting the club in its kind of purest form, as well as having that community footy feel while still being part of our professional program, I guess is what it is nowadays in the W. So, yeah, I can see the club not lobbying, but just going like, we're not desperate for the doubleheader situation. Yeah, we're happy keeping it in-house because, yeah, like you said, we've had some of the best average crowds over the last 2 or 3 years in the W competition. Where, the atmosphere, like any Port Adelaide game, men's or women's, is always good. We're always parochial and support our sides quite vocally. So yeah, I'm not upset. I do understand and see the viewpoint of the doubleheader in terms of exposing people who may be a bit hesitant or resistant or something to the W games. But I'm not losing any sleep with having all of our home games at Ebert's country.
Yeah. I think you and I both have loved our time going down to the games there, and certainly I'm already looking at the fixture and seeing a few Saturday afternoon ones, and then some nice like little night evening ones down there. Just get down and tip a few back, knowing the full percentage of my libation proceeds are going to the club. That makes me feel good. And they're cheaper down
and it's
there.
It's a much more family friendly excursion as well. They've got the kids zone down there, and being a suburban ground, it just does provide a bit more ease when it comes to bringing kids along if you have them. I know I certainly have brought my daughter along to a few games, and there's plenty of other families who have taken advantage of that scenario as well.
No, absolutely. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to chatting more W as the season gets closer, and we certainly will start doing that. But on to more sobering notes, and I won't spend too much time on it because I haven't been fully across it, but I've kind of covered off the basic nuts and bolts of it. It's been big on the social media stuff today. The Carlton podcast, I won't name it, but I think people will know in general what I'm talking about. A Carlton podcast of a bunch of blokes sitting around a table. There was some context to it that they were talking about charity boxing matches, but I think the subtext of what and the story being that they decided to have a crack at how they could punch on with and beat up another Carlton podcast that is called Carlton Besties, made up of some women. I don't know much of their content either. I don't honestly listen to too much other fan content because spend enough time on our stuff, listening in and keeping up with Port news. I just don't have much time for it now. Outside of this, I listen to movie podcasts and history podcasts. So, but I know that they have their space and they deserve to have their space without feeling threatened. And I think it's the subtext of what I was annoyed by was the notion that what the words were from the blokes were, we could beat them up if we wanted to. Was like the notion of it, and I found that, and that's why it's angering and why so many people have come out against it. I think it's just a worthy note it made me think about what we do and how we try to be pretty good about how we talk about things. I know sometimes I'll make mistakes and I'll acknowledge it, but I think it is important. It's a good reminder of whether you're fan media or not, we certainly do wear our biases on our sleeves as far as how we talk about other clubs, but it's very general. It's like, yeah, we fucking hate the Crows. Currently, I fucking hate Greg Swan. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying those things, but when you're actually, when you're latching on to toxic masculinity and kind of the patriarchy and all those kind of things in making funny, like things that you think are funny in content, it steps over a line, and that's why it's resonated so much with a lot of people today, and the kind of universal condemnation of it. And I absolutely agree with it. Like, I think it'd be interesting to see. I think the unfortunate thing is it gets clipped, gets noticed. The guys come out and try to defend it, but they actually don't really apologize for it. They're trying to make excuses for it, and that's not what you should do in that place. You've got to sit back, realize what you've said, even if the meaning behind it isn't what you were actually trying to say. You have said the words. It is the subtext of it is stuff that's built up in generational toxic masculinity and all those things. And you've got to just kind of sit back, and it's kind of like whenever these things happen, whether it be the Isaac Rankin homophobia or racist jibes on the field, past and present. When you get caught out for these things, you've got to sit back and listen and understand what the power of your words are. And you don't see that from them at the moment. And that's why it's kind of continuing to bubble over. Again, I haven't looked into it too much because we were at the Port Club last night at Talking Footy. Shout out to the guys down there, Travis and everyone working down there and giving us a good night. But, and then today I was working. So I've kind of just been catching up on it as the day's gone on. But just kind of wanted to put my thoughts out there that, we're certainly a space, as we were just talking about the W season and the fact that we do a lot of, content around the W season when it's on. We're both two men that, love our partners and don't want to see them feel threatened by any toxic masculinity out there. And these kind of things just annoy me that even in 2026, we still have to contend with these stupid ideations out there. So I just wanted to put those thoughts out there that, we absolutely condemn that kind of idea. And people just need to be better about their words and be careful with them. And it doesn't mean you can't, mistakes are made at times by everyone. But when you do make those mistakes, sit back and listen rather than put the defensive arms up, because it only gets worse from there when you go that way.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said. We're of similar minds, and we're generally on the same page with a lot of these things, hence our friendship and relationship. I'd only be reiterating what you said, and don't necessarily want to get on a soapbox, because we're here to talk about Port Adelaide and our section of the universe, and like you, I don't consume too much, if any, other fan content. Maybe a bit of Schadenfreude if I have enough time on occasion. It's just about, and this is the wild world of unregulated content, podcasting and stuff like that. And there was some context to it, like you said, but it's just, even in context, what's necessary and what's unnecessary to bring up. And jokes are jokes, but seeds are sown in the world of toxic masculinity, which I'm sure there's probably some people listening who are a bit tired of that phrase. But unfortunately, with the current statistics that society faces in that regard, it's inescapable. It's fact that some heinous shit goes on in the world in regards to women. And like you said, I love my partner. I love my daughter. The jokes, in essence, aren't the issue. It's just the normalizing of certain behaviors that is that flow-on effect. But again, I don't want to get on a soapbox and tell people how to live their lives. Even if I was talking about a celebrity boxing match, and this is all great in hindsight, I don't know if I'd still be including females in that discussion, regardless of the context of the discussion. You wouldn't, it wouldn't be a reality if it were to be a real thing that was going to come to fruition. So it's not, in my opinion, not really necessary to bring up. And yeah, you do open yourself up to things being clipped up and perhaps being taken out of context, but it's just having the self-awareness just to stay away from certain things, in my opinion, again, and trying to change societal norms for the better, not continue, whether consciously or unconsciously, continuing, the normalization of putting one gender above another or whatnot. It's not what I'm about. So that's probably where I'll leave it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the ultimate thing is, and that thing my dad always told me growing up, and something I've tried to hold on to, is, when you're having a joke with a mate at school, often when, bullying and things came up when you were growing up and you kind of were learning how to, be and interact with people, is just like, a joke's only a joke if both sides are laughing. And if, clearly the besties had no idea they were going to get brought up in that discussion, then it's not a joke for them to suddenly be seeing a content where a bloke's sitting there on a couch with his mate saying, surely I'd win that fight. That's just not on. Unless they're in on it and there's some actual hypothetical boxing match that you're both talking about, then it's just like, and then you're both understanding of what the ground rules are, then, but clearly that wasn't the case. And even then you'd have to be absolutely be sure of how you were talking about it and being sensitive to the idea before you even went there. And there was none of those steps there. So it is really just men kind of subconsciously fantasizing about the fact that there's a fight to be won, and it's because they're a woman, and that's absolutely the wrong way to be thinking about any situation in life. So thoughts out, because for us it's easy to sit here as men and talk about it kind of with some separation because we are still men, but for the women out there that constantly have to kind of see this kind of stuff and feel the fear every day, the crossing the street and stuff like that, that's just where my thoughts are with people that see these things and actually feel that real fear about, what can happen if we go down the wrong street at the wrong time. So, we need to start making society better, and it's still a long, long way away from where it needs to be. So keep that in mind, everyone listening. I know most of our listeners are very, very good people, and we don't have to worry about you guys, but make sure you back up your friends, your female friends out there whenever they feel that fear. Make sure they're supported and understand that there's good people out there and we're trying to work towards more percentage of good people being out there to support everyone out there to be safe.
Just calling out poor behavior as well definitely
absolutely
goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what normalizes it. Sometimes silence does help normalize these things, and that's why I kind of wanted to just bring it up as just a note on the podcast. We're just two nuffies on a podcast, but I want to make sure people understand where we're coming from. So, yeah, speaking of two nuffies on a podcast, one more thing before we get to the preview, more a lighthearted story. It's been talked about as being cheeky in the news, but thought it was interesting that Josh Richelli just chucking F-bombs on a footy that was clearly going to probably end up in a child's hand after the showdown.
Always end up in a child's hand.
That's what's funny is the whole thing is like, who knew where that was going to end up? It's like they're designed for kids to get. I remember my younger brother, Damon White, coming and handing him a footy at a game. And
wow.
Yeah, Damon White.
Name someone I haven't thought of in a while.
It was the game. It was actually the game where we raised the premiership banner. My parents, so obviously the rest of my family are Crows fans, but they took me to the game, and my brother at the front. We were at the front, and I had a lot of the players kicked him into the crowd, but Damon White just picked out my younger brother and just ran over and handed him the footy. And my mum's always remembered. She sometimes forgets the name, but she's like, "Oh, someone." Damien? Was it Damien? I'm like, Damon White. You're close. And she just remembers this guy and just is forever loved that. So, it is always designed as, kids are getting these footies. And Richelli decided to pop a fuck the power on a footy, as well as his signature on there, just to make sure that we all knew who it was, which I don't think any of us are surprised. It is a funny story. It is very, we're not going to get too serious about it, but I do find it funny that we, as Port fans, have copped a lot from the Crows over the past 5-10 years, as the Port have somewhat, pantomime villain kind of stuff, tried to engage the rivalry a bit, depending on, with some lines in the media over the last few years. And Crows fans have always said, oh, you know, I don't know, we're not like that, and we wouldn't do that. And I remember Xavier Dersma, when he was doing the bow and arrow celebrations, was like Crows fans being like, oh man, I'd hate it if a player like of mine did that. And then now Riccelli's the biggest celebrator in the league. There's been a lot of stuff over the past couple of years. I've just been quietly sitting there and going, all those Crows fans that were waxing lyrical about what Port does are just very, very quiet about Riccelli's celebrations, what Riccelli's doing, the teeth thing. And now this one, it's not, I don't care that much. I'm not going to, really, the podcast is the only place I'm going to talk about it. I just find it funny. And I was interested to hear your thoughts on it for a minute, because I just think it is real, you know, how the turntables area is at the moment. Because, and look, he's a fantastic player. He's going to be a thorn in our side for years to come. So I'm not going to get too crazy about it, because otherwise I'm going to say something that's going to come back to bite me in you know, could be 2 months or a month away. Who knows? But he's a great player. I'll never shy away from that. But, you know, he's learning some things at the moment. And I if it was a Port player doing it, I'd probably be like, fuck yeah. Like, so part of me is just like, actually kind of respect it in a way, but also it's more like, actually my more annoyance is that the Crows fans are very silent at the moment. But we all know they're a bunch of hypocrites with no soul, so that's all good. But it's also very funny. It just drops late at night on a Wednesday. Like, it is very like crow ties stuff to just like, we're going to try and drop this one. But of course it's been picked up and been a pretty popular story today.
Yeah. I think as Port Adelaide fans, we all understand the pearl clutching that would occur if it was the other way around. So you just have to sit back and laugh. Like you said, the late night dropping of the news story and whatnot, and the general sweeping under the rug. And look, yeah, by and large, like you said, if it was the other way around, I'd just feel like, yeah, that's fucking hilarious. And yeah. I agree. And to paraphrase someone, I think I saw it on Twitter, maybe even a Port fan, and it was just like, to paraphrase, I think they said something along the lines of like, I'm not really mad because it's the first sign of a soul, or like first genuine sign of rivalry out of that soulless fucking club or something like that. And yeah, I can sit with that viewpoint as well. It's just like, yeah, instead of just being a plastic franchise, just actually have some reality to it. But yeah, they are a soulless, conglomeration of bits and pieces, a bit like Frankenstein, if you will. Frankenstein's monster, I should say. Common misconception in the naming.
Very good movie.
Yes, agreed. But yeah, I'm not gonna get on a soapbox about it, because if it was the other way around, I'd have a shit-eating grin about it. And it's a bit stupid in the fact that those footballs do end up in kids' hands, and you could have just written FTP, and it kind of just been like a, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing. But yeah, a bit like the AFL and how I'm desensitized to their shenanigans and the fuckery that comes out of AFL House. The notion of what it would look like if it was the other way around from an SA media point of view, that's where I sit and laugh, because we know the confected rage that would occur had it been the other way around. So funny.
I was just thinking about, I remember when Jared Walsh at an activation at a showdown in 2021 had a bit of pantomime stuff with a Crow fan that was in his activation, and I think it was a goal kicking competition, and he actually pre-organised with the little kid. He knew he was a Crows. He found out it was a Crows fan and said, "Oh, look, when it gets to you, I'm going to ask you what your favourite team is. You're going to say the Crows. I'm going to kick you out of the line, and I'll give you you'll get a Rebel Sport voucher afterwards anyway. Like, it's no big deal." I think the Crowject and a bunch of other Crow fans got like on the social media tirade saying how fucking gutless is this bloke, and I think to the point that Jared Walsh actually responded to it. And actually, when I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but when I did a Speak Good workshop a few years ago, he actually spoke about it as a moment where it's just like, this is just the shit you have to deal with. Because I think even the Crows current social media comms guy at the time was got involved in the chat and was like, how disappointing. We'll see who we can find out if it's who's their family. And it turned out that was all like stuff that they'd organised in the activation. Yeah, it was a bit. So, and it was all very confected rage stuff, just like, how dare you? And people were tagging Rebecca Morse and all sorts of stuff. And it was just crazy. It was just like, it was insane. It was the same night that we changed into the prison bars after we won. So there was all that rage about that.
Oh, what a great night.
Yeah, it was fantastic. At least we get to wear them now. But it is just funny how different, like how the turntables. But again, from my point of view, if a port, like, you know, we've had Justin Westhoff flip the bird, that kind of stuff. Like we love this. We love the fact that the rivalry actually does have some real passion to it. It does, certainly for us. And I think it's I thought the teeth thing from Rochelle a couple of years ago was a little bit socially unconscious, but I think just a little F the pair on a footy actually, you know, doesn't bother me too much. It more just bothers me that I could very, very predictably tell that it was going to get a little. Even the headline saying cheeky just means that there's a very like soft landing for the Crows in that area. Apart from that, hey, well done to Richelli for popping a little bit of extra zing into the showdown in a bit over a month for us, or less than a month actually, possibly. No, it is a bit over a month. It's 27th of June, isn't it? So, yeah, no, looking forward to that one. Let's get into talking some footy for the last half hour here. I was hoping I'd be able to wrap that news up in about half an hour, and we've done 31 minutes. So I've actually kept the schedule pretty well, which is a pat on the back for me, because Jamie deals with me not sticking to schedule on the regular. Of course, as we said at the top of the show, we play Carlton this weekend, Saturday night footy, 7:05 p.m. at Adelaide Oval, your Yada Footy Club. Some big ins and outs on our end and some big structural things that we're changing here. So we'll start with that. The outs, Dante Vicentini omitted. We'll get to that in a moment, because we did talk a little bit about the kind of maybe diminishing returns on that front, and that sometimes somewhat come to fruition here in selection. Will Lorenz omitted as well, and Lockie Jones injured, of course. The ins, we'll start with Josh Sly, probably just a 1-for-1 with Lockie Jones. Both concussion. One's in, one's out with concussion. Josh Sly comes in, probably plans to slot in down there as a good intercept marking, taller defender, even if a little bit slight still and inexperienced, but he's been playing some good footy since he's come in. Todd Marshall comes in. It's an interesting one, because you think, maybe he comes in as a defender, but there's been a lot of talk about him. I think he's even been reported in the media as doing some work up forward in training this week. So what kind of swingman roles he could possibly play this week will be interesting to see, considering we've been looking for maybe a little bit of help from Miss Georgiades up forward. And of course, Jacob Ware comes in. Will Lorenz goes out. That's a like-for-like wing replacement, probably. And Jacob Ware, who we're probably, of the two wingmen we've had this year, has been probably lesser returns, but I think we were actually, you and I think a couple of weeks ago, actually weren't too worried about his place in the side. Obviously, Lorenz did get his shot, didn't exactly light it up, so Jacob Ware comes back in. How are you feeling about those? It is probably the biggest changes structurally and otherwise we've probably seen in the side for 6 weeks now.
It's very interesting, apart from the concussion in and out, like you mentioned, with Lai and Lockie Jones. It is quite interesting, because we did get the feel that Dante was perhaps on the outer, particularly when Carlton are really only going the one ruck, and considering their key position out, their backup ruck, just at a guess, would probably be Patrick Cripps, because their key positions, in my mind, kind of have to stick to where their major spot is, where their magnet lies. So interesting there. When you do take that information about Todd Marshall into account as well, the Port Adelaide media manager has put Todd Marshall on a full back line. But again, we're coming up against the Harry Mackay. Brody Kemp is 192, and they do have Mitch McGovern on the bench. So I guess they have tool options, but who knows where Mitch McGovern will play, whether he plays back, whether he plays forward. He could be anywhere in regards to Carlton, and who knows what they are aiming to do for the rest of the year, and what their structure will look like, and their usage of Mitch McGovern. So I just don't see a need for Marshall to be back, even though his move back has been well publicised, and we had our not doubts, but just the robbing Peter to pay Paul type aspect of shifting him back. And this was obviously prior to Jack Whitlock kind of having a good start to the season. That was obviously our preseason shows. We were discussing things like that. But it does, I don't know, for me, it does still make more sense to have a Todd Marshall up forward and just seeing what that looks like. Because we haven't had that opportunity since Charlie Dixon has been retired. Him being injured for the entirety of last season, apparently him putting on a stack of weight while he was out with that Achilles, we haven't been able to look at the combination of Georgiades and Marshall, putting Whitlock to one side, of course, and we'll obviously need either Whitlock or Marshall for that matter to pinch hit in the ruck at times. So it's interesting. In regards to Jacob Ware, bit tough on Lorenz. Like you said, he didn't light up the stat sheet, but I don't think, he used the ball well, statistically. And his returns weren't that far less to an average game of Jacob Ware. I just kind of get the feeling that Jacob Ware is much more cognizant of our structure and how we want to set up the game after playing, 9 games before he was dropped. And I kind of get the feeling that they want to pick the most settled side to be able to get the win. The discussion of, how much we're trying to win and trying things out and trying players out is obviously up there among discussion points of fans and the like and media types. But I just get the feeling that they've gone, Carlton are a bit of an enigma because they have their highlights of how they can play and some weird statistics that they're up in the top echelons of the competition in, but they find themselves 2-8. And so maybe in that honeymoon period of a coaching bounce as well. So that's the feeling I get by bringing Jacob Ware back in, because I would have thought it just makes sense to keep Lorenz in for the second game, then a bye, and then assessing it at the bye. But I think they kind of just, they want to get the win. They want to pick a team most likely to get the win. And Jacob Ware, in their opinion, probably just firms up the structure just that little bit more. And maybe his output across this first nearly half of the season is that fraction more than what they expect Lorenz to do had he kept his spot. Yeah.
I think there's one thing we always sometimes forget as fans, sometimes a lot of selections, there's trust from coaches in players that understand the structure and game plans. And Jacob Ware's, Ewan McKinley's been taking a lot of the highlights and from fans as far as those wing positions. But I think Ware had some decent moments where you could just see, the sacrifice he made against Geelong, where he had more or less was playing the defensive role on Dempsey and just doing those kind of roles. For coaches to see that kind of stuff, that's important. It's maybe just a little bit of reward for, maybe what they gave Lorenz a shot, but it was it's a 50-50 and they don't want to keep Ware in the system as well. So, I don't mind the move. Ware's had a few mares, so to speak, as far as disposal or fumbles. But beyond that, beyond those moments, I think he's been okay. So if he can tighten those things up, then I've actually been pretty okay with some of his output. Not the output's great, but the fact that he is playing some of those thankless roles, I think that's important to note. It's a really good point about listening to Kimbo and the Chad again tonight. Chad, it might have been actually the other day, I can't remember, one of the shows this week, but Chad's been hot on it all year that he wants to see Marshall up forward. I've understood the ideation from the club in putting him down back and just trying because of his elite kick, and we've seen some real good highlights of Marshall this year. But it has been probably particularly as the season's worn on, you're seeing that you could really utilize some help and experience down for Mitch. Like Jack Whitlock's battling away really, really well. And even, last few weeks where he hasn't been kicking as many goals, he's still involved, taking marks, moving down the field. His experience is growing by the week, but still just by pure experience and ability to just battle with defenders and provide another real experienced option and dangerous forward option. And, Todd Marshall's a bloke that has kicked 44 goals in a season. Like, he's kicked 40 plus in a season before. Like, he's got pedigree in that space. So if you could, and then, if he plays up forward, but you've got the swingman option to go down back if need be. There is some options there. You were talking about, and just a brief note on it, you kind of talked about the ruck options. I had a look at who took the ruck contest last week for Carlton, and Mark Pitnet took 54, Harry Mackay took 18, and Patrick Cripps took 3. So that's kind of
okay.
To your
so
point.
They are sacrificing Mackay.
Yeah, Harry Mackay, who also playing his 150th game this week as well. Of course, the footy record will be known as the Zach Butters this week, just to make sure everyone's aware of that. But yeah, there was some sacrifice for Harry Mackay in the ruck there as well, for sure. Like, it is a small percentage by comparison, but Mark Pitnet taking them by and large. But Cripps did take a couple there as well, probably just positional and where guys were resting probably at the time more than anything. So he is an option, but Mackay did take probably 25, almost 25% of them. So interesting there, but that does probably speak to what the coaches were looking at as far as what our coaches were thinking about with what they could do with giving Vicentini a run outside of the main side after the last few weeks, where we've probably seen, like I said, diminishing returns, and it changes what we're doing. Jordan Sweet's going to take the by and large, and obviously our mids are going to be up against a fairly good. This is real. There's been a lot of questions in the last week or so about the midfield support for Zach Butters. And I think I did hear, I think Joe Richards on Kimbo and Chat as well, said that internally, Zach Butters has actually been okay with, like, they're internally, like, okay with some of the support Zach Butters is getting. Just not like reading out, maybe fleshing out into a game result. But I think, just the lift up around him by a few players will do a lot for him. But it is certainly a tough test against a side that, when their mids get going, they can be really, really dangerous. What will be interesting is which side gets going for longer, because sometimes it is just the ability for Carlton to keep it going for a long time. That Crows game in Gather Round, for example, is the one that I've watched the most of probably of Carlton footy this year, and they had a really, really great first quarter. Cripps was going off. Sam Walsh had 15 disposals. It was really a tidal wave, but then they had to rest Cripps for 7 minutes at the start of the second quarter, and then the Crows got the ascendancy, and then they couldn't rest it back. Like, football's a sport about, sometimes it is about when you do your rotations, you've got to find a way to keep some momentum. And sometimes Carlton, the thing that you can get them at is, like, when they do their rotations, they just don't have the fall away when they don't have the mix on the field that they want. Can be quite stark. And I think that's probably maybe an area we can exploit them in, because I think it is kind of one-paced stuff that when they're on, but when they're not, it really falls away quickly.
Yeah, I heard a discussion throughout the week in regards to Carlton being, I believe, the number one side for scoring from clearance, funnily enough. And that's, again, you talk about the start of that gather-round game, smashing on a heap of goals through clearance. But then the flip side, I can't remember, maybe it was Mark Pickley was talking about the fact that they need to, because they're not scoring from turnover, where in regards to the competition, most teams' scores are coming from turnover these days. And so again, it's that an enigmatic type of, I don't know if it's part of their game plan, but it's just the situation that they find themselves in from a statistical standpoint. But it does still go to show, I mean, our clearance numbers comparatively are very much the same, averaging around 34 for the year. So just looking at the team lineups just broadly, Carlton have enough players to make this game very annoying and enough players to carry them forward for a result. Hopefully they've got the coach bounce change, the coaching change bounce out of their system, but they have some things statistically working for them. And yeah, that part of the enigma, which I'll try not to use too many more times in the episode, but just the fact that they've played such good football for a half and have just been a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to bring out another old horror character for everyone's
I'm enjoying this.
For everyone's ears and eyes. Yeah. But that's that. I mean, it's a pretty good way to summarize a lot of their games this year. So who are we going to get? I don't know, but I like our team, and yeah, I'm really looking for a lift. If it is clearance that we need to really knuckle down on in regards to Carlton, twofold. Obviously, stopping their major scoring source, and then B, obviously taking advantage of the fact that they have two fairly inexperienced key defenders in their back line. So if we can win clearance, particularly from the centre, we can hopefully frank that ascendancy with the likes of Mitch Georgiadis, who will overwork anyone in that back line. And the weather's supposed to be good for Saturday as well, I might add. And if we see a Todd Marshall in there as well, just stretching them even further in the air, again, putting Jack Whitlock to one side, who, he's been doing admirably as a second tool, but if he gets the chance to be a third tool, I think that's quite a tantalizing proposition for him to kind of get that ball rolling again. Like, you mentioned he has been impacting. He's had his shots on goal. He had 2 shots on goal in Darwin, just didn't convert either of them. I think just jumped around lines there, but I think midfield is probably the more pertinent one in regards to Carlton's positives or highlights. I think it's a big game for Jeff to kind of bounce back and go into the bye with some steam built up, getting back on the right track. Ollie Wines might have statistically had a down game in Darwin, but I would expect him to just, regular programming again on Saturday. And if Willem Drew can get back to the more positive gameplay that I guess Stuart Dew and Josh Carr have instilled in him for the most part, because it's going to take those key midfield pegs to maintain some sort of ascendancy in this game and make sure we're not being dictated to by the likes of Cripps and Walsh and Chera. I believe Hewitt is back into the fold after having his layoff earlier in the year. So again, plenty of players who can annoy us and give them the ascendancy. I think it was Ollie Florent was their leading disposal getter against the Bulldogs. I just, off the top of my head, it's probably coming off a halfback though, but involved in stoppage around the ground, halfbacks, half forwards. So some noteworthy players just reeled off there. So our midfield is going to have to lift to the occasion. And I think Zach Butters will keep on keeping on. But that's where, on a good night at home, just before the bye, I think Jason Horne-Francis holds a little key to our success if he can have a real big bounce back from his last couple of weeks.
Yeah. And I think it'll just be getting back to because we saw a game last week. We actually had some decent work as far as winning the stoppage, but then it was just the disposal coming out of the stoppage and certainly centre clearance a little bit as well. Like I said, there was really only one period of the game where the centre clearance differential came from last week. I think both of those areas are ones that we've tightened up on a bit this year and are actually battling with some pretty good sides in that way. Was that little just a tangent for a second? James just doing a little fist bump. I don't know if the YouTube caught that, but is that a certain result going a positive way for Port Adelaide fans right now?
'Tis, replied Aunt Helga.
Give us a score update, Jamie, live on the podcast.
All right, so we have Hawthorn 75 defeating Adelaide 66 points. It got close there. Hawthorn obviously kicked a late goal to seal the deal. So happy Thursday evening, even though I know everyone will be consuming this on a Friday. Happy Friday morning. Just getting that information reiterated to you because you all already know that by the time you listen or watch this, but nod to you all. We're all rejoicing at the moment.
I guess Josh Riccelli isn't kicking any footies into the stands tonight, is he?
Yeah, no fuck the Hawks footballs.
Back to the preview as we start to wrap this one up. It is interesting looking at the statistics between the sides. There is some areas that we're defensively, obviously, we're a better side than them across the board. Total points given up is 80 to 97. Points from turnover, we're 44 that we give up versus their 56. Points from stoppage, we only give up 33 versus their 34. Now, they, as a team, have been scoring well from stoppage. We haven't. So the stoppage differential that we, on the attacking side, we score 28 points from stoppage. They score 38. So that will be kind of, again, mitigating those differences. If our defense can get closer to what we give up from stoppage versus what they score from stoppage so far this year will be really important. And then it's obviously the points from turnover. The turnover differential will be good. Again, like last week, there's a lot of things that we look at last week that were ugly, disposal, all those things. But they're in between the lines. The fact we got within to a certain point, we're actually looking like, oh, geez, can we get within 15 points here when Joey Richards was taking that shot for goal? Outside of the fact that we didn't ultimately make that closer comeback, you kind of look at the game and go, there's really just a period of the game we kind of fell away. Beyond that, beyond that back half of the second quarter and into some of the third quarter, even once the third quarter, Gold Coast had kicked those couple of goals in the third quarter, we started arresting. It became a bit of a dogfight a little bit for a while there. There wasn't much scoring. We were just trying to get ourselves back into the game, and then we did, and then we ultimately make a little bit of a run back into the game in the last quarter. And a lot of that comes from getting a little bit of power back into the contest, and ultimately, again, it's just a disposal efficiency, which again I think is something we've been better at this year. Our kick mark game has been better this year. Obviously, we took half the amount of marks last week that we usually wouldn't have matched in the conditions that we would prefer. So I think if we get ball control. This year, generally, we're a team that has time and possession number is where plus 2.1 on the competition average. Carlton are just below that competition average. So they're slight margins, but we are a team that does generally this year have a little bit more control of the ball, and in particular, a little bit more control in Carlton. And our time and forward half numbers at times last week wasn't too bad either. So it's just, again, that disposal efficiency in it, and the time with the ball last week was well below what we were expecting from how we're playing this year. And being back on our home deck against a Carlton side that is enigmatic, to put it lightly, at times is, I agree. There is opportunity. Yeah, there is. Claxon. There is opportunity there for this side for sure. How are you feeling about a couple of things? Obviously, we've already mentioned it. A massive congratulations to Zach Butters playing his 150th game. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about him this year, but let's just park that for a moment and just say, geez, it's been good to watch this bloke for 149 games, and we're very, very blessed we get to see him play his 150th in person. I'm really, really excited for that opportunity.
Yeah, congratulations to him. Yeah, it just makes the discussion over his future just that little bit more tense. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like, you're paying your 150th. You've and in his press conference, he talked about when he came in having the likes of Brad Ebert and Travis Boat, Robbie Gray, the senior guys to lead or to usher him into the next phase of the football club, and now him having played 150 games after this weekend. He's now the one doing that for the likes of, Joe Barry, Jack Whitlock, and fan of the pod, Christian Moraes. But then also to hear him talk like that just gets your emotions in all sorts of different directions. But the fact of the matter is he's playing 150 this weekend. It's a great achievement. He's a fantastic player. That goes without saying, and I hope he lights it up in his 150th. I hope we have maybe a generational Zach Butters game. That'd be nice to go into the bye, because he's definitely been up tracking in that direction. He's putting up some good numbers at a consistent level. So, yeah, I love him. In regards to the game, you mentioned time in forward half, though. I just got to say, I'm pretty sure we're 6th in the comp for time in forward half. It's one of those positive numbers in our with the footy statistics in regards to Wheelo ratings. It's just some of that other stuff that, change the score and stuff that's bringing, our overall scores down. So it's interesting. But if you take all of our games into consideration and how we've performed, regardless of result, this is a game that we absolutely can win. I have no doubts about that, but it's also a game that I feel like if we get inside our own heads a bit too much, or if we try and overcomplicate it, we could stumble. Because while Carlton looked a lot better against continuously injured Western Bulldogs last week, we've put it up to some of the best sides in the competition thus far in the competition. We've put it up to some of the best sides in the competition thus far this year. And as long as we stick to our structure, put a bit more score on the board and take advantage of some of the momentum that we have throughout the game, and touch wood, not give up a run of 5 to 7 goals, which, to be fair, was a bit of an out-of-the-box run for an opposition against us this year. So, yeah, if we stick to what we've done for the most part this year, and average, the law of averages would say that we win this game. I'm probably only predicting maybe a 15-pointer, but that's probably because I'm just trying to protect myself a little bit from a bit of angst throughout the game. We have the pieces. Our spine looks good. Our periphery looks good. Some players are in form. Some players are contributing. But like I said, if we can get a JHF to lift that extra 5 to 10% and get back to, the Badco medal type performances, and that St Kilda game in particular in gather round, Asava with another week under his belt. I'm confident. Hopefully Joe Berry can continue on in his pseudo rising star form. As we know, he's unfortunately ineligible this year.
He's our rising star. We'll fucking make him his own medal. You said a 15-point prediction is interesting, and looking at Wheelo ratings, they've got a 68.5% chance of Port Adelaide by 15.8 points. So take that for what you will.
There you go.
And these are
I did not check that before coming on.
I figured if you had, then you would have been going with I also saw this. So yeah, no, I know you are. Your predictions often end up very, very close to. I think we said 4 to 5 goals last week, and I think there was a similar notion from Wheelo as far as the favourability. So Gold Coast last week, these things often can change, but there is often a lot of analytical reasons that actually go to these things being pretty close. I think Rory that does some predictions on Twitter as well, Geelong fan, and a very, very disappointed Hearts fan at the moment. I think back when I think he predicted his analytics had Bulldogs by 2 points in that game that we played a couple of weeks ago, and that ended up exactly right as well. It's interesting how these analytics work out that way, but that means it's close enough that we certainly can't underestimate the opposition. But one more thing I wanted to touch on too: Corey Durden, Big Durds,
hey,
our mini goat, wearing the number 44. He's playing his first match against his old side. Not that there's any animosity there. I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. Shout out to Travis Wakeling. Timestamp Corey Durden content. It's a fun match for him because we've seen him miss a couple of shots recently. He's still kicking goals every week. He's still one of the few players in the competition, alongside Mitch Georgiades on the Port front, that have kicked a goal every week of the season so far. So obviously hope that continues this week. Also, kind of would love him just to. He's kicked 2s and 1s all year. He hasn't kicked more than 2 goals in any game this year. Would love to see him. We saw Joe Richards kick 3 goals too last week and then kind of break out of the box a little bit as far as his scoring opportunity goes. And Joey could have maybe had 4 goals 1 if he kicked a little bit straighter as well. Be lovely to see maybe big Dirds, kind of light it up against his former side and maybe kick 3 or more. I'd love to see him finally get his. We've talked about. We want to see him get a bag because he's doing a lot of good work. We love what he's
said
doing
it after the showdown.
Yeah. So I'd love to see him, alongside Zach Butters go, 35-40 or something like that. Have little Dirds go for 3 or 4 and really have like one of those like small forward games that gets him like a coach's vote. Like maybe it's just a singular one, but just get one. Like you have that much of an impact that Kari just goes, we'll give him Dirds one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Something that I hadn't even considered clearly. I was actually more thinking, I hope we don't get a revenge game from Frankie Evans, who's listed on Carlton's bench. So,
I
yeah, but
immediately setting myself up for Schadenfreude, but trust Dirds.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. I mean, it is interesting because coming into Gold Coast in Darwin, we were going, this is a real small forwards game. And our smalls contributed. And I'm like, well, can that just continue? Even though, the likes of our key position players will get a bit more supply in the air or maybe more percentage of securing a few marks in the air as opposed to the ground. But now I'm like, can Joe Richards and Joe Berry kick another couple of goals again? But I'm craving a Durden bag. Like I said after the showdown, he's done a lot right this year, and a lot of very similar to my sentiments with Jordan Sweet are coming up against the Western Bulldogs. Just as people, as men, we're all just normal men. Coming up against the side that you used to play for, just whether subconsciously, consciously, semi-consciously, whatever it may be, you want to prove some sort of a point, even, like you said, even if it was amicable, the separation. So very, very keen to see how he performs now that you've brought that up. Another tidbit for me, though, Tom Anastasopoulos kept his spot, which I think is fair. So Lorenz unfortunately gets the in and out treatment, and they are housemates as well, I'll reiterate. But I think we touched on it in the review. Was impressed with the debut. I think it was Joe Richards you mentioned was on SEN and mentioned that in the second and third quarters, he was actually tasked with a bit of a defensive role on Daniel Rioli, which to guys, Nuffy's on a podcast, you don't really have that. You're not really aware of such things until people bring it to light. And he said, that was lifted, that role in the fourth quarter, and he was back among the possessions. So, keen to see how he does now that he's got the debut out of the way. But it is quite noteworthy that he does keep his spot and now can play in front of home fans for the first time.
Yeah, and that is a very good point to bring up, that the debut is wonderful, and he got 25, 30 family members up to Darwin. Nice costly trip for your debut, but it is nice for him that now he, whatever the future may bring, like he gets to at least both have his debut, but then gets to play a game in front of the home faithful on Saturday night. Like there's good energy in the gym, so to speak, and Anastasopoulos on Saturday nights. Be interesting to see what the crowd is, but certainly the 30 to 40,000, whatever it may be, will be right ready to rip into it. And he gets to experience his first never tear as a player on the field, all that kind of stuff. That's a special moment. Shout out to him for keeping his spot, and hopefully another solid performance coming this weekend. I'm probably in a similar boat to you. I think I'm probably actually, it depends what I still am a little bit unsure of what the new coach bump brings, being that they've got their win out of the way and they're going away as well. And I do hope that we can kind of I'd love to see us win it by 4 or 5 goal. I think we're going by the old
need that
kind of
nourishment.
binary metric of how many goals a quarter better than we are than Carlton. I'd like to think we're a goal a quarter better. So, win by 4 to 5 at least, and would be nice. I'd love to see us do what we did last year and just fucking absolutely belt them off the park in the first half, and then not have to. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But I don't know if that was a weird out of the box kind of first half that we got to experience last year. But it is interesting. Obviously, we mentioned Wiedering being out for them. Actually, I don't know if we actually talked about that. I think we talked about that off air, possibly. Did we talk about that off air?
Yeah,
bring it on.
Yeah, I alluded to it on pod here, but we haven't really touched on it, which is quite interesting. And I mentioned that our tools could potentially take advantage, but
that's we kind of talked about it off air pre-pod, but just to close off on it, it was interesting. Last year, Jacob Wiedering came into the match against us at Adelaide Oval with a bit of a dodgy ankle that he was he was testing out pre-game, and we kind of were talking about it in the stands, like, oh, he's already testing it, doesn't look comfortable on it. Like, what are we going to do? And we absolutely, I think it was a lot of shake and bake and real movement in our forward line that just made Wiedering's night just a horrible night. So the fact we don't even have to worry about Wiedering in this one opens up the forward possibilities a little bit. And look, we are a side that even against some of the best backlines in the competition this year have with the way Mitch plays, and then if he's getting a little bit of assistance from Todd Marshall down there and the forward line we've got, it is a backline that is gettable, I guess I would say. It's young. There's some young players in there. There's some experience in there as well, but there's some youth amongst it as well. And I think it's opportunities present, but ultimately comes down to how our midfield goes, and that's where ultimately the battle comes always. But if we can even it up in the midfield, which I think we're very, very capable of doing, then I think we probably have the win in the backline versus backline, and that's where the analytics. I think that's probably, without being an analytics guy myself, that's where the analytics would have found a good percentage chance for a Port Adelaide win is those kind of areas. So yeah. Hugely looking forward to it. It's our last game at home for a couple of weeks, so obviously with the bye coming up, so just looking forward to getting after it, and hopefully we can get that nourishment. And I think this side deserves it. They deserve that kind of that little bit of taste of winning again. They obviously got a surprise one against Geelong, but they've had some heartbreakers across the last few weeks, and I think as a side, just a little bit of reward for effort. And I think they're all probably mature enough to know where the team's going, but still just that tangible taste of a win is important for a young building side.
I totally agree. Yeah, the last 5 weeks have been in gone. Everyone across the AFL landscape kind of had their opinions and projections on how that 5-week period would be. I think what we got out of it was much more positive than what we and a lot of people were expecting. But it, by and large, played out from a win-loss point of view the way that a lot of people expected to. So with this game now on the back end of that, this is one that we would have been looking at as a W. So, yeah, let's make it come to fruition so that we can go into the bye with a bit of confidence and then having, some easy, not easy games, some winnable games as well coming back off the byes as a result.
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to get into it. And of course, we will be back here on Tuesday evening, being this is a Saturday night game. It'll be Tuesday in it for our review next week. So looking forward to being here with you next week, whatever it be, whether it be therapy, whether it be elation, anything in between. We'll be here to cover it all off. Nothing more to say, Jamie. Calm the fucking pair.
Calm the power. See you on Tuesday, Wednesday with the points in hand.